So you're thinking about buying a home in Georgia? What is it going to cost you? Well, it depends. Hi, I'm Sarah Maslowski, and I am a real estate agent serving the North Metro Atlanta area, help clients from all across the country relocate here, and today I thought I would break down exactly how much it costs to buy a home in Georgia. Now, obviously, everything depends upon the price of the home that you buy. And according to the MLS system, which pulls from about 75 different counties here in the North Georgia region, the median sales price in June of 2021 was $350,000. Now, needless to say, there are homes listed for a huge variety of prices, but that was the median sales price of homes in June in all of the counties that the FMLS system covers. When you have found that perfect home, how do you know how much it's going to cost you to purchase that house? So many people have a preconceived notion that you have to put down 20% of the purchase price in order to buy a home. And that's just simply not true. For starters, in order to know how much money you're going to have to pay, you're going to have to figure out what kind of loan you will be getting. Now, there's a few different loan options available. You have a traditional conventional loan, and a conventional loan requires a minimum of 3% down. Now, the reason that many people assume you need to put down 20% is because conventional loans do not have any government backing, which means that the lender has to assume the risk if someone does not end up paying for their loan. So if you put down less than 20%, you're going to be charged what they call PMI. PMI stands for Private Mortgage Insurance, and it's typically 0.25% to 2% of your loan balance per year, depending upon the size of your down payment, loan amount, and your credit score. After you have been making payments, and once you get to the point where you have 20% equity in the home, you no longer have to pay for that PMI. This typically takes 2 to 3 years, but it could take longer. Long story short, you don't have to put down 20%, but you will have to pay for that additional private mortgage insurance. Another popular loan option is an FHA loan, and some people confuse this and think that it's only for first-time home buyers. With an FHA loan, you only have to put down 3.5%, and there is no private mortgage insurance since an FHA loan is backed by the government. However, there are certain requirements like a certain credit score, a debt-to-income ratio, etc. Now, even though there's not private mortgage insurance, you are still going to have to pay a mortgage insurance premium, and that again is based upon your credit score and how much you are putting down. You also have options like a VA loan if you are a veteran, which has a 0% down payment requirement for veterans, and you also have a USDA loan, which also has a 0% down payment requirement. However, a USDA loan is only granted for homes in certain rural areas. So you can't get a USDA loan on a house anywhere you please, especially not in cities. In most of the Metro Atlanta area, it's going to exclude some of those. However, there are some areas in the northern Hall County, Forsyth, Jackson, those type of areas that will qualify. You're going to want to talk to a lender early on in the house hunting process so they can dig through your finance, figure out what your debt to income ratio is, what you feel comfortable with, and tell you what kind of loan you can qualify for and how much you're going to need to put down. This is going to be the first part of calculating how much you will owe at the closing table. In Georgia, in addition to your down payment, you're also going to have closing costs. Now, closing costs are the fees and charges that it costs to facilitate the sale of a home from one party to another. And as a buyer, a good rule of thumb to figure out, just like a general ballpark, is usually between 2% to 3% of the cost of the home. So what actually makes up those closing costs? Well, there's going to be two main categories that these fall into: taxes and fees, and prepaids or prorations. The taxes and fees are for the state and county, plus you're going to have fees from your lender and closing attorney. Now, this is a very important point to note. In Georgia, we use closing attorneys, and closing attorneys process the title of the home via a title company. So in other states, you may have a title company that you work directly with. In Georgia, the closing attorney handles all of that for you. So if you're moving from a state like California or Montana, this might be totally new to you. Don't worry, it's part of the process. We will help walk you through it. A great thing people are surprised to find out when it comes to making that first mortgage payment is that it always skips a month. So for example, if you close your home loan in August, your first payment is not going to be due until October the 1st. So keep that in mind whenever you are planning your move, and just know that you're going to have a little bit of a cushion there. Now, you are going to pay some of those prorations for that, and of course you're paying interest ahead of time for that month in between, but for a lot of people this can make things a little bit easier. Another thing to keep in mind that is going to be calculated as part of the closing cost are your taxes and insurance. Now, the property taxes are going to be prorated for the amount of time that you are going to own the home for that year. So you'll get a credit from the seller because they're going to own the home from January 1 until whatever the closing date is, and then you're going to be responsible for the rest of the year. Not only are you going to be charged for that, but your lender is also going to require that you set aside a couple of months of property taxes in what they call an escrow account that the mortgage company is in charge of. In addition to putting prepaid property taxes in there, you're also going to have to pay a full year of homeowners insurance and additionally another couple of months of homeowners insurance that they're going to put into that escrow account. So as you can see, a lot of those fees really add up and stack up and go into that escrow account, and that is where a large chunk of that 2 to 3% of the purchase price comes from. Let me give you some specific examples of charges you're going to see in closing cost. Now, I compared 4 different settlement statements from recent closings that we have had with all various different sales prices, and the average cost of taxes and government transfer fees paid between these 4 transactions was around $1,100. So what do I mean by those fees? This includes recording fees with the county's clerk of court, transfer fees to the county, and intangible taxes to the county. Like I said, since some of those tax bills don't come out until later of the year, you're going to be charged for that whole year's tax bill, then reimbursed or prorated for the time that you were not in ownership of the home. Now, another part of fees that make up a large portion of that are lender's fees. The average cost of lender charges between these 4 homes was about $1,400. Now, the lender's charges include the cost of the loan going through underwriting, pulling a credit report, a commitment fee, and a few other little charges that get put into this category. These transactions also had prepaid interest charges of around $300. That's the part where you're kind of paying for the house before you're actually in the house. This is the interest that is charged on the loan from the day of closing to the day of your first payment is due. Another prepaid fee to talk about is that 12 months of homeowner's insurance, plus 3 months worth of payment that's held in the escrow that we talked about before. Now, some lenders do not require that 3-month cushion, but you'll find that many of them do. You also have to remember that this is kind of like prepaying your bills. So it's not just disappearing, or it's not going into the lender's pocketbook or the closing attorney for that matter. It is prepaid bills that you are going to pay in the future. Now, the cost of homeowners insurance obviously varies based upon the age of the home. For instance, one of the 4 homes I used to calculate these numbers was a new construction home, and their policy was only $1,200 for the year. But another one of the homes was built in 2004, and their insurance bill came in at $1,800. Another part of your closing cost is going to be your prorated HOA fees and transfer fees to join the HOA. So let's say you're closing on a new house on September 1, and the yearly HOA fees are, let's say, $1,200. The seller has already paid the HOA yearly dues. They paid those earlier in the year. You're going to be charged $300 for your portion of the year's HOA dues because you are responsible for the rest of the months. You're going to give that to the seller as a credit because they've already paid for the HOA dues for the entire year. There is also usually a transfer fee, which basically means the homeowners association charges you when someone moves out of the neighborhood and when someone moves into the neighborhood. You can think of this also as an initiation fee. Now, this fee can vary. I've seen it as low as $200 and as high as $1,800 in higher end communities. One thing to note though is that you are not always charged for these transfer fees. So make sure you pay attention to the community association disclosure to see what the seller has disclosed of what their community charges for these fees. One thing to keep in mind in the case of new construction is that if you obtain a loan through the community's preferred lender, they will give you a credit, let's say somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000. This can be used towards any closing costs that you may have. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, back before this housing frenzy, those types of incentives were very common. However, right now it's uncommon to kind of see that. Previously, we could negotiate for sellers to contribute towards the closing cost in resale transactions, but in this market in 2021, it is a little silly to expect that we can get that negotiated. You will, however, sometimes see sellers contribute towards closing costs if there is an agreement that instead of repairing any items revealed on a home inspection, the seller will contribute a portion of the funds to the closing costs in lieu of repairs. So aside from closing costs, what else can you expect to pay for when you buy a house in Georgia? Now, there's a few things that you're going to have to pay for outside of the transaction, meaning you'll need to pay for them separately and they will not be rolled into your loan or paid with funds from your escrow account. This is things like your home inspection would fall into this category. Typically, a home inspection is going to cost you between $500 to $600 depending upon the size of the home. This is paid for outside of the transaction. And while it's not technically required, I always tell my buyers to have a resale house inspected and a new construction home inspected as well. A lot of the times it can uncover issues that are going to save you thousands of dollars to repair, and this is something that we can negotiate and have the seller cover some of these repairs. So in many cases, these home inspections will pay for itself because we've uncovered repairs that need to get done. If the home you're buying for is on a basement, you may also want to consider having a radon test done. Now, radon is a gas that is emitted from under the earth and it can cause cancer and other major health issues. The home inspector can place a machine in the basement to read these levels and determine if they are at a safe level. This typically adds about $150 to $170 to your inspection. The cost to mitigate radon and install a radon mitigation system in the house typically runs between $1,000 to $2,000. Now, if that report comes back with high levels of radon, this is something that you may be able to negotiate with the seller since it's a major health and safety issue. That's going to save you a couple $1,000s. Like I mentioned earlier, if the seller does not want to repair the items that come up in a home inspection that you are trying to negotiate, a lot of the times we can come up with a reasonable price that it will cost you as a new homeowner to fix and negotiate for the seller to contribute that equal amount to closing costs. If you are buying a new construction home, you're going to want to factor in that you probably are going to need to buy a refrigerator. Now, here in Georgia, all of the other appliances will be included, but a refrigerator is typically something that a builder does not put in a home. Now, with resale, I would say that that's about a 50-50 split. Sometimes the sellers don't want to have to worry about moving a refrigerator, so they leave it. Other times people are like, dang, I just paid $3,000 for a fancy new fridge and I'm taking it with me. So you'll need to check on the seller's disclosures if you have a seller that will be leaving the refrigerator, or perhaps you can negotiate it into the purchase contract for the home. Now, another thing that was a little bit surprising to me recently working with out-of-state buyers was the washer and dryer. So it's come to my attention that in other states it's common for a seller to leave a washer and dryer. However, in Georgia, that is usually not the case. Sellers typically will take their washer and dryer with them, so keep that in mind, that if you're not coming with one, you'll definitely need to purchase one. Now, when it comes to new construction, another thing that you're going to want to keep in mind and budget for are blinds and a garage door opener. You may think that this is a no-brainer and that everything comes with the house. However, in Georgia, those are two items that majority of builders do not include. Now, of course, you can add them onto the contract and pay additional money for them. However, 90% of new construction agents that represent builders will tell you it's cheaper to get that done after the fact. So a third-party garage door company coming in to install a garage door opener or those blinds, typically always cheaper to do it after the fact. One last thing to consider whenever you are purchasing a home is a septic inspection. Now, in Georgia, we have a lot of homes that are on septic, including, neighborhoods that you would think should be connected to sewer. They'll have septic tanks, especially homes that are on lots that are bigger than half of an acre. So if a house has not had a septic inspection within the last 5 years and the seller does not have proof of that inspection, it's usually a good idea to have a septic inspection done during your due diligence inspection time period. Sometimes you can negotiate for the seller to do this and provide a copy of that clear inspection report, but especially in this market right now, it's very hard to negotiate that. So you may want to be prepared to have a septic inspection done. Typically that costs between $200 and $400. All right, so that was a lot of numbers I just threw at you. Basically, everything depends upon the type of loan you're using to buy a house. And I've had buyers owe as little as $10,000 at closing when they got an FHA loan. In this market, though, it can be really hard to have an offer accepted on anything that is not a conventional loan. But as always, my team and I, we will do the best to get your offer accepted, and we have some great tricks up our sleeve. Make sure you watch this video if you haven't. We also have amazing lender partnerships that we have, that they also have some incredible loan options for us that will help us win in this market. Now, there's a big bonus. When you buy a home, I often get asked, especially from buyers, how do you get paid as a real estate agent? And they're asking me, like, what fee do they owe me? You, as a buyer, do not pay a real estate agent anything. That's right, it is free to work with an agent when you are on the buying side. The seller is in charge of paying the real estate commissions. So it costs you really nothing to work with a really great agent like me. Our team would love to help you in your relocation. We are helping clients from California to Florida to New Jersey, Texas, all over. Please reach out in the comments below. We have our website, our phone number, however you want to get in touch with us, we are ready to help you.